Well, good morning, my She Speaks family. Um, I say good morning because this is when I'm recording this. And I just had a conversation and this maybe not this, okay. Hey, my She Speaks family. So, this morning as I record this, I just had a conversation and my mind is currently on some things regarding the No More Secrets event that's coming up next month. And I think about just the revelation that I got originally when this came about. I thought that this had to do with mothers and daughters, like two individual people. And when I made my flyer, that was the intent, or should I say, that was my intent. And over the last few weeks, my interpretation of that statement has shifted for all the right reasons. And I was thinking about what I was going to possibly name this episode, and it may just be No More Secrets, or I may come up with something else in the end. But this is no secret that I'm about to share right now at this moment. The truth is, many of us may not realize that we don't need someone else's permission to heal. And when I say that, I don't mean in the aspect of like we think we have to ask someone else permission. But when I say that, the permission sometimes comes in the form of thinking we have to know why. It could also come from a place of feeling like someone owes us an explanation, or like they owe us an apology. Like if I knew why they did it, or if they would just admit that what they did hurt me, or that they hurt me, or if they would just apologize, if they would say that they were sorry, if all these things. I feel like that's slapping a sticker or a label saying, I am waiting for you to do this before I can actually start my healing process. But to snatch the label and the band-aid off, throw it in the trash, and for me to just tell you, remove the person or the situation away from your healing process and your healing journey, because it's not about them. And I think most of our lives, when we hurt, we hold on to who hurt us or what hurt us instead of just throwing it away, because we don't need them to heal. You don't need them or it to heal. And the beautiful thing and revelation that I've had is Ladisha, I didn't ask to be hurt. I didn't ask for pain. I didn't ask for bruises. I didn't ask for scars. I didn't ask to feel unloved. I didn't ask to feel unheard or unseen. I didn't ask for any of these things. And most of the time, none of us are asking to be heard. Most people are not asking to be abused. The battered and bruised woman, wife, girlfriend doesn't ask for her eye to be hit for the first time. She doesn't ask for her hand to be broken. Nobody asks their abuser, their molester to assault them. But we are all left with wounds. We're all left with these scars that are aching, that are hurting, that are painful. and we're left with anger, and we're left with bitterness, and we're left with all of these internal things that no one can see or treat. They may be able to treat our wounds or treat black eyes and fix broken teeth and, give you therapy for those who have had to learn how to walk again, or a brace for a broken arm, or, something to help with those bruised or those cracked ribs, or, something for a head injury, a ice pack. But nobody is able to go in and diagnose you a prescription for your emotional pain and the damages that we are left suffering with. And unless we tell somebody, people may not know that it's there. People can assume that it's there, but they don't know if it's still there. They don't know the moment that it leaves. They don't know that it keeps you up at night. They don't know that it makes you have these suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideations. Nobody knows unless you say it with your mouth. And depending on how you feel, it gets to a point for some of us, we don't even know how to express what we truly feel. And oftentimes, we become a product of what we're dealing with, and we grow up thinking, or we live life thinking that this must just be who I am, because I was labeled the mean girl. I was the mean kid. I was the one that, it's like I was just mean to everybody. But the children around me had no idea what I was dealing with. They didn't know that that was my coping mechanism. I didn't feel like I had a reason to show up and smile. And with adults, most of the time, I had to put on a fake smile. And so when I got around those my own age who, I didn't really have to worry about, they were no threat to me, I wore my true face. I carried my true spirit around. I didn't feel like I had to fake those are the only times that I felt like if I was sad, I could actually be sad. And if I looked sad, I was okay. Or maybe I guess I looked mean and I looked angry. I was broken and I was hurt on the inside. And I was dealing with so much that I felt like nobody around me is going to understand, especially not another kid. And so I just, I grew up labeled because nobody could see what I was really dealing with. My sickness was not external. I had internal wounds, and I had internal damage, and I had internal pain. And there was no way that I knew how to make sense of it, to make sense to somebody else. And I also didn't feel like I had to share what was going on the inside of me, because let's be honest, who wants to talk about what they don't even want to feel? I wasn't happy to have to talk about anything. I hated the way that I felt. And I'm here at 30 now, realizing that wait, Ladisha, you don't have to wait for them to heal. You don't need them to say not another word to you for you to heal. You don't need to know their why or their understanding, because the truth of it is, knowing the reason isn't going to make me feel better. Having somebody acknowledge that they hurt me isn't going to make me feel better. Having somebody apologize to me after this long, it's surely not going to make me feel better. Because having those thoughts, if I'm being honest, sometimes it'll, in some days, because our emotions fluctuate. One day I'm crying because I'm sad. One day I'm hurt. One day I'm ashamed of myself, even though I didn't do this to myself. Some days I'm angry and I'm bitter and I'm a bit pissed off. Why? Because I look at you and I say, out of all the people, I thought you were supposed to love me. I thought you were supposed to take care of me. I thought that because I was born here, that you would have realized that I deserved better from you, a better version of you, a healthier, safer version. And when anger plays a part, you could really care less of somebody's why. You could care less about an apology, and you could care less about an acknowledgement. And I think it's my anger that has helped me in this past season the most. It was because I was angry that I decided I don't want to allow somebody access to my life anymore. And I say that because after so long, after living past and through and in the hurt and the pain and the trauma and the abuse and the suffering, I realized that if it never dawns on you to come try and clean up just a little bit of the mess that you made in my life, and I get putting ourselves in people's shoes, I get giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, I get grace and mercy. But being who I am today, knowing some things that I have done to play a part in hurting other people's lives, I'm not able to just go on about it and say, oh, it's okay, or oh, they'll get over it, or oh, maybe they've healed. Absolutely not. And because that's my mind frame and that's just how I, see things. I say I see logically, as real people should see, and not try to sweep things under the rug. And I know what it is for me. I love accountability. I hold myself accountable. And because I hold myself accountable, that means I also naturally am going to hold others accountable as well. And so I've gotten to the place of saying, I get that you did it. I acknowledge that you did it. I'm going to give you grace and mercy, and I'm going to forgive you. But the anger in me that has learned when people are too full of pride, shame, ego, arrogance, whatever can be slapped on somebody. Labeling people is no longer important to me. Knowing their why, knowing their background, knowing their story, I could really care less at that point. The anger in me says, Ladisha, what do you desire for yourself? What is going to make you better? What is going to make you feel better? What is it going to take for you to heal? What is it going to take for you to get over this? And when I start having those logical conversations with myself, that person is nowhere in the picture. I'm not giving myself real life answers based off of the who and the what. That has led me to have to figure out how I'm going to get back well. I completely remove them out of the situation. Meaning, at the end of this, if I have to go and I have to do all this work, more than likely, you are not getting the exact same access in my life, if you get any at all. And because I don't need anybody else's validation other than the Lord and the Holy Spirit at that time to let me know, Ladisha, I'm going to restore this relationship. And God has shown me that later on after doing the work. But while I'm mad and while I'm bitter and while I'm dealing with unforgiveness, no, you cannot be in my face every day. No, we're not going to be buddy buddy. No, we're not going to have conversations. Why? Because I'm not about to fake like we're good. I'm not going to lie to myself, because I'm also not going to put wounds and stab wounds in myself for the satisfaction of another person. And I've learned it's not my job to babysit the emotions of adults anymore. I'm not talking about children. But too many times I know for myself, I've stayed in relationships. I've stayed close. I've had conversations. I've indulged in text messages when I really didn't feel like being involved with that person. Why? Because I was more so worried about how I would make them feel if I distanced myself, when that's what I needed to do to take care of myself. And so I come in this moment to be honest about healing, that healing is very ugly. And sometimes healing can look like it's doing more damage to you than the actual damage that was done in the first place. But it's very beneficial to be honest and real to self. Because my healing has felt like I've been on a hospital table with open heart surgery with no anesthesia. And when you have to walk out something that hurts you so much, yes, you continue to be the one to sign yourself up and say, yes, I want to go through another level of that. I want to go through another session of that. That is like pure torture. But it was necessary in order for me to become a better version of myself than I have ever been. And that's because I took away the power that other people had in my life that they were not responsible with. I took my life back in my own hands, and I allowed myself to be held by the Father himself. I didn't try to heal on my own. The Lord was very present. But I took away the power of people. I took away the power of the abuser. I took away the power of the manipulator. Because I made a choice to kick them out when it came time for me to heal. Because how can you heal in the midst of somebody who's okay seeing their knife in your back? They're satisfied knowing that they have a leash around your neck because they're so controlling. And that as long as the things you do benefits them, then they're happy and they're satisfied. Because there are some people that look at us and they know that we're miserable, and they know that we're not living up to our best, and they know that we may think that we're happy because we've gotten stuck in a world that they've created around us, a box. And as long as we don't ever realize who we really are, and as long as we don't ever try to break the borders that they put around us, and if as long as we don't ever try to become bigger than who they are okay with us being, then life is okay, but it's not. And I lived that life for so long, not knowing this is abuse. This is manipulation. This is narcissism. I didn't know that I didn't have boundaries. I had borders because they had been built around me, but I didn't know what a boundary was. And once I started realizing that, Ladisha, you need boundaries. You need boundaries for people who have had free reign in your life, your entire life. And now, for the first time, you're going to put some kind of restraint on them and say, I don't take this anymore. I won't live like this anymore. You don't get to treat me like this anymore. And then those spirits start talking back like, oh, who do you think that you are? Who told you that you could get a backbone? Who told you that you could speak to me this way? Who told you you didn't have to listen to me anymore? Because our enemy is spiritual. It no longer becomes about the who in the natural, but the what behind the faces that you're having to continually and consistently deal and fight with. And this was the reality of my healing journey. That I began to see the demons in the people who had controlled me my whole life. I began to see the darkness. I began to see who their true master was. But it wasn't until I started breaking the mold and saying no, and I stopped going in those territories so often, then was I able to see, wait a minute, I've been living amongst the filth, thinking it was normal, thinking that it was good, thinking that it was God, thinking that this was the Holy Spirit, thinking that this was okay, thinking that this was going to be around me my whole life. It wasn't until I started saying no to my unhappiness. I started saying no to my depression. I started saying no to things that I didn't want to do. I started saying no to things that other people wanted me to do. But I realized I don't want to do it today. I don't want to help you today. I don't want to be a part of this conversation today. I just simply want to be left alone. And I found that I had more peace being by myself than being with them. I had more peace when I stopped lying to myself for them. I had more peace when I stopped showing up in rooms that I didn't want to be in, but I was going for them. And again, them is not the people. And sometimes it hurts when you can see what's inside of your loved ones and they can't see what's in themselves. But boldness becomes a part of the journey. When you start healing, you discover the roots of things that you did not realize were there. And instead of me having to ask man permission, I was able to see the why in the spirit realm. I was able to see the why in the root system. I was able to go back and trace the foundation and realize why I was who I was, why the things that I didn't like about myself were continuously showing up, and why it felt like I could not change who I was. It was rooted in me. The enemy had territory and rights to me, and I was not aware. And I did not ask for permission. I did not ask anyone if it was okay for me to heal. I just slowly stopped showing up. And for the first time, I knew that it was time for me to take care of myself. And eventually it was the very ones that I thought were going to be the only ones that could stay around as my circle got shorter. And I realized later on it was God that would come tell me, baby, you need to walk away. But see, he had to come tell me to walk away from something that never crossed my mind. And because of the society and because of norms, oftentimes when it comes to family, we think, well, because I was born here, I'm obligated. I have to stay here. You know, the word says that family is our first ministry. And I was being sabotaged by that. And then it was the Lord that let me know, Ladisha, I'm giving you permission to walk away if you want to. I'm giving you permission to come out of what's been hurting you. You've gotten far enough that if you don't want this anymore, I'm telling you, I'm here with you to walk away. And one day I made my mind up and said, I've never really wanted to be here. When I think about the truth, when I go back into my past, when I go back into my history and I look at how I felt 10 plus years ago, God, I've always said I no longer wanted to be here. But life went on and things appeared to get better on the outside. But I realized you can't really love me if you know that you broke me and you let your pride or your ego or your shame or your guilt get in the way from you willingly coming and helping clean up a mess that you know you made. I'm okay if a broken person broke me. But if you live your life like you are well and whole, and nothing in you ever says, I need to go get right, that I got an issue with. I have an issue if you say that you love God, but he don't ever bring up nothing that you need to go clean up from your past, because he's done it with me. I have an issue with people who proclaim to be something that they're not. That's what I have an issue with. I understand if you are still just as broken today as you were 30 years ago, I don't expect anything else out of you. But when you come outside and you live a life as though you are righteous and you're not, you're self-righteous, and as that you're holy and you're not, or that you're redeemed and you're delivered but you're not, if I can see that you look like you've been walking with God for this long, and you look like you're clean, and you look like all the things that you're supposed to look like, but when I look at the inside of you, there are some things that I can still see. And me being who I am, if I know I've walked with God, and I know he's had to break me in ways that I never thought I would be broken, and I know I've had to be humbled, pride and arrogance and ego, God has broken and stripped and broken and stripped and re-broken and re-stripped me. It makes me look at, and I won't say all abusers, because everyone who's hurt me hasn't grown. Everyone who's hurt me hasn't been transformed. So those I don't expect anything from, I just say, I kind of pity you. There are some people that I had unforgiveness toward, and the more I got in my word and I saw what happened to the evil, and I saw what happened to the crooked, and I saw what happened to those who tried to set traps for others, it gave pity in my spirit for them, because I got to see their destiny if they didn't get their hearts right with the Lord. If they don't go repent and turn away from their sins, if they don't go seek him for forgiveness, if they don't forgive anybody else, then I know my Father in heaven cannot forgive you. Because he also let me know, Ladisha, your forgiveness can only go as far as your forgiveness that you're willing to give to other people in the earth. And the same God who's talked to me, it's not just for me, it's for all of us. And so it was hard for me to look at somebody who said that they love me, and I say, but I can see it's not that you didn't want to treat me well, or you didn't want to be different, or you didn't want to try, because I saw you be those things to other people that you never were to me. And I had to take all of those thoughts, and I had to take all of those feelings, and all the things that I processed over these months and years. And I had to make a conclusion and say, you know what? I no longer have an expectation from you anymore. I'm no longer looking at the life you live. I'm no longer looking at the things that you say. I know the fruit in my life. And I don't know if maybe there's another side of your tree that I just didn't have the ability to be on, or if your apples are covered or coated in something that glosses and glistens for them. But I know the apples that have been in my basket. And sometimes they were good and they were sweet, but sometimes they were just bitter and they were rotten and they were horrible, to the point that it didn't even matter what good was in there. I just said, throw the whole basket away. And so I now live my life based off of that concept. I'm not worried about the fruit that are produced somewhere else. What are the fruit that I get? What are the fruit in your life that I see? When I go and I look at my basket, what is the majority that you produce around me? And I can't argue with the evidence. I can't argue with the fruit. And if I get more bitter and nasty, or if I realize that what looked good was actually covered and coated, I gotta take that. And I have to make a necessary decision for myself. Nothing against you, because I am also the girl who says, if I'm paying you for a service, I'm not about to tell you what you're supposed to do. I'll just go take it to somebody else who knows what to do. I don't have time to overly explain and tell people how to love me. If love ain't running through your heart, if you don't have compassion, if you don't truly have the eyes that you profess that you do, or the ears, because at some point, God and other people shouldn't have to call out everything. At some point, we should know when we're the problem. At some point, we have to be aware that, oops, as soon as that came out of my mouth, I knew I shouldn't have said that. But then not just be okay with the thought to yourself that I shouldn't have said that. Go tell somebody that you apologize. Go tell somebody that you're sorry. And yeah, you can throw out, you know what, I'm having a bad moment, but that doesn't excuse this, that I didn't deserve to bleed on you, and you've done nothing because you ain't the one who cut me. I've had enough of funky and phony people. I've had enough of people hurting Ladisha, and I took accountability and I realized, God, you know what? I will guard my heart. And sometimes guarding your heart means you stop being stupid. Guarding your heart means you stop living in ignorance. Guarding your heart means you stop making excuses. I don't care if it's your mama or your daddy. They don't get to talk to you as and downgrade you as though you're nobody. I don't care if it is your grandmama and she talked to everybody like that. That's not love. And we become so accustomed to accepting abuse and pain. And by far, I am not perfect. I'm still having to break patterns and cycles with my own children. But I'm aware that I am a mess up. I am aware that I'm not perfect. I am aware that it is my prayers that God do not allow for me to be the one to abuse my children. And I also pray that he would deal with me if I break those that he put into my care to love and to nurture and to be responsible with. Because I'm not okay with what produced me. I'm not okay with the life and the things of how I've been mishandled and mistreated. I'm not okay with it. So why would I be okay if I became a reflection of what broke me to some girls who don't deserve it? There's grace and there's mercy. But at some point, you have to know when to take your hands off and when to remove yourself from a situation. And so I probably shouldn't label this no more secrets. But sometimes you just gotta say, I'ma do it anyway. With or without you, I'ma do it anyway. With or without you, I'ma heal anyway. With or without you, I'ma get over it. I'ma pick myself up and I'ma get over it. I might have needed you to be broken, but I don't need you to get well. You may not have asked permission to slice and dice my heart, but just know I'm taking the knife back. I'm taking the knife with me. I'm walking away with the wound still on my heart. I'm walking away with your blood on me that I never asked for. Oh yeah, I'm a walk away because you won't get the satisfaction to see me heal. You won't get the satisfaction to see my tears anymore. You will not get the satisfaction. But the next time, if you ever get to see me again, just know I won't be who I was when I walked away. I think healing is the best thing that we can give ourselves and the world around us. Because the truth is, we'll all be broken at one point in our life. but it's not a guarantee that we'll all be healed and whole again. And some of us have never ever known healed or whole. It's just a word. And for me, it wasn't a word. For me, I didn't know I was broken. I knew I hurt, but I didn't know I was broken. I didn't know that I was abnormal. I didn't know that how I felt had a opposite version to it. I didn't know that it was possible for me to be the woman that I am today. I didn't know that it was possible for me to actually be my real self, and my real self have a smile on her face, just because I didn't know that true happiness existed. I didn't know that there was a such thing as joy. I didn't know that there was a such thing that there was a such thing as forgiveness. I didn't know that I could live life and not hate anybody. I didn't know that I could live life and not be bitter and sour. I don't have regrets right now. And when things come into my mind, it's easier for me to redirect them to the truth. But I guess the honest to God truth is, I didn't know what I know now. And now that I know what I know, I also know there is absolutely no way that I could ever go back to an older version of who I used to be. And so maybe you have trauma. Maybe you hurt. Maybe you have scars. Maybe you're bruised. Maybe you have pain. And I just encourage you this. Sit down and ask yourself, what do you need today? To self, what is something that'll make me smile? What is something that may keep me from crying tonight? What is something that I can give myself that nobody else has? What is one thing that I feel like maybe if I had that, I'd be better today? Or what is something that I no longer want? And what can I do to make a first step forward? Is there a trait, or is there a pattern that you want to break? What is one thing that you can do to help yourself reach that achievement? And once you've gotten that one, ask yourself another question, or add another step to that. And one day you'll look back and you will not even remember how you once stood where you did. Or one day you'll say, I know I used to feel that way, but I don't even remember the last time I felt it. Those are moments to celebrate, because you feel a sense of relief and excitement, but it also makes you proud of yourself to know I needed something and I didn't have to wait on somebody else to give it to me. And one of the most beautiful, most powerful things that I have grown accustomed to, because again, I did not know that this was a thing. When something felt too big for me, that sat and pressed inside of my being and on my heart, I opened my mouth and I said, God, I know that your word says you're a healer. And right now, God, it's not a physical thing. It's a mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual. I need you to heal my broken heart. I need you to heal this area that I don't know how to get back to the root of. I need you to take this off of me, because I don't want it, but I don't know how to get rid of it. And begin to invite God into the process. Invite him in on the healing journey. and allow for him to do and be to you what you may have never thought or imagined. Because God is not just a God who wants to do miracles outside and do big things for people to see. God is a God who wants to come on the inside of you, and he wants to heal you, and he wants to restore you, and he wants to redeem some things. He wants to make you his, and he wants you to be his own. But he is such a good God that he waits for you to invite. He waits for you to initiate. And yes, he is standing there waiting on you so that the moment you call from the inner voice, because he doesn't need your vocal voice, he just needs your heart to call out to him. And you'll realize he's been there all along, waiting for you to ask for the help that he knew that you would need. And so I just encourage you, find out what you can do. Find out that one thing and then do it. Because when you put and place the accountability in your hands, there's nobody for you to blame anymore but yourself. And I don't know about you, but I hate when I have to kick and fuss at myself because of something that I've done to hurt me. And so we may not be able to say, oh, I was responsible for my pain, for my abuse, for what hurt me. But you are responsible for staying. You're responsible once you're aware of what's going on and you continue to stay in that same environment. You hold some kind of responsibility because we all have a choice. And maybe you hadn't thought about it like that, but let me reintroduce you. Let me help you have a shifted mind and a perspective. Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, is obligated or entitled to have you in their life. I mean, look, God even gives us a choice. He gives us a choice on whether we choose or accept him or not. So what makes us feel like people? Like people are entitled to something that God himself doesn't even force upon us. And that's because it's not God. It's not God or them. It's darkness. The enemy, the adversary, he is an intruder. He's a stealer, a killer, and a destroyer of all things. He is the only one who is going to use a human relationship to try to force his way into your life, or to force you to allow him to stay there. Dealing with these kind of people, those are not God's people. I don't care how much they preach. I don't care how much they try to prophesy. I don't care what they look like on the outside. The enemy will fight you to keep a position in your life. God will not. He is not a forceful God. And he's not ugly. He's not mean. He does not come to hurt us. He comes to give us life, and life more abundantly. And so I pray that this episode of She Speaks, that maybe you get something out of it. And I also pray that you would go, and that maybe one day you would start to do the work.